Okay, lots going on. I have some news coming out of the Supreme Court. I guess they want to keep illegal criminals in the country. Going to go through that and some of the other big stories. I have a special guest with me today, Jobob Talifi, to go through that. Jobob, thank you so much for joining me.
That was pretty good pronunciation of the last name too. That's solid work there. Yeah, Joe Bob's a crazy name, but it's on my birth certificate, so that's what we're rolling with. Thanks, man. Thanks
All
for having
right.
me.
Well, you told me off air you had a Grandpa Joe and a Grandpa Bob, and your mom, just loved them both, and boom, it's a mashup.
Yeah, there was an argument over which grandpa would get the namesake, and they decided hillbilly. So that's how that happened.
Hey, well, I think Joe Bob is better than Bob Joe, so I think
Correct.
they really had your future
Accurate.
in mind. So I appreciate you coming on. Just some background for my audience. Joe Bob is a Turning Point USA contributor. He's a comedian, conservative commentator. He also has his own nightly show, Turning Point Tonight, over on Real America Voice, where they go through different news stories. And you mentioned you guys kind of keep it lighter, a little bit like a perspective of how things are a little bit funny or silly in the country.
I always say, if you're watching Real America's Voice and you want serious, hard news information, watch the Charlie Kirk show, because usually we don't we talk about serious things, but generally speaking, if you let the libs talk enough, they make fun of themselves. So why don't we make fun of them in addition to that? So yeah, it's not that we don't get into anything serious, because of course there's stuff that's unavoidable in the news, but at the same time, it's a late night show. Effectively, it's not traditional necessarily as a late night thing, but it airs at 10 p.m. Eastern, and usually people are a little bit ready for an easier watch, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I tried sneaking a joke in my daily news the other night, how Suge Knight believes that President Trump might end up pardoning P. Diddy because he probably has some favors with people in the government, right? And then I read the last part. There's a new victim who submitted her testimony, and she makes a pretty big dig saying that his peepee was the size of a Tootsie Roll. And I thought, ouch, I would not want that in my court documents.
I'm trying not to laugh here, but yes, that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. On a serious note, this is trending all over the internet right now. Former head of the FBI, James Comey, the guy who colluded with Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party for trying to rig the election in the Democrats' favor. He then made President Trump's life a living hell with the Russia story. He put out a photo of seashells that were organized in the numbers 8647. Now, 86 is code for kill, take out, remove, and then 47, the 47th president. He then apologized to the internet, said he had no idea what this meant, and that he's a non-violent person. He's now being investigated by the FBI. Do you buy for a minute that the former head of one of the largest police force, intelligence forces in America didn't know what 8647 means?
Feel free to stop me if my alternative theory is too hokey. But picture this, right? So either you have to be stupid or lying, okay? We assume that James Comey is lying, but I wouldn't necessarily entirely dismiss the stupid claim. Everything he has done, going back from when I learned about James Comey, remember when he said, well, we basically have all the information. We could definitely charge Hillary Clinton, but we're not going to. And then 12 days before the 2016 election, he blows it all up and says, we're reopening the investigation. Then the whole Russiagate thing, then he's kicked out of his position, and he posts photos of him staring pontificatingly into the woods, and now this. I wonder if the man is just stupid. And the reason I have to possibly even back that up, people don't know, well, a lot of people do know this, James Comey is 6'8", the lanky lawman. There is documented, scientific, studied evidence that people have some sort of height bias. If you're tall, people think you're competent. I wonder if his height, being as tall as he is, got him to the highest levels of government, but he is in fact an idiot. So Do I think do I think he knew what 86 is? Yes. If I had to place money, and I guarantee you he knew exactly what that meant. But don't discount the fact that the man might just be stupid.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Well, that makes sense. I have average IQ. I'm 5'10". I'm average height.
Mm.
Struggle to make it up to the upper echelons of government myself. So there
That's the
might
reason.
definitely be something to that, though. No,
Mhm.
I have heard that. People that are tall, they have all of their hair, they have a great smile, they end up winning the presidency or
Mhm.
become the governor or whatever. It's like we can't help but look at somebody and say, "Oh, they're handsome. They must be intelligent." Maybe that's what was going on with James Comey.
I mean, James Comey, there's a laundry list of examples. I mean, but one that jumps to mind is the current governor of California, Gavin Newsome, who on several occasions has admitted, yeah, I did. I got a really bad SAT score. I wasn't super smart, but look at me. I'm the governor of the most populous state in the union. Yeah, he happens to be tall, happens to have all of his hair, and isn't overweight. So I think there is actually some truth from an attractiveness standpoint and possibly even a height standpoint that you get a lot more leeway. See, us non 6'5", 6'3" people, we actually have to be smart. So I guess kudos to us maybe in the realm of having to actually have some sort of competency to be able to reach the levels of influence that we might have gotten to.
Yeah. Well, I've been married for 20 years. I went ahead and got off the dating market as quick as possible,
Mhm.
which was good because now it seems women that are dating, they only want 6'6", right? 6 foot tall, six pack, six-figure income. I didn't have any of that. And so, my wife, bless her heart, she's just had to put up with me and my very average body, average life. So, but no, that's interesting. Do you think just staying on the topic
Mhm.
of Gavin Newsom for a minute? Do you
Yeah.
think that he is preparing to run for president? He's putting out this podcast to try to build nationwide exposure, outside of California exposure. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think it's 100%. He's 100% running. So I've worked in California politics for a very long time to take off the comedian hat. I was a consultant. I ran a guy against Gavin. Interestingly, had a couple actual interactions with Gavin, which the scariest thing I tell people all the time about him is he's very likable. I cannot disagree with that man more on pretty much every issue under the sun, except for the ones that he's come around to the conservative side on. This week, he said, "Hey, we probably shouldn't be giving healthcare to illegal immigrants." I'm like, "Cool, I agree with you on that." And then the whole transgender sports thing as well. But I disagree with him on everything, but he's very, very likable. He's always been super nice and cordial anytime I've run into him and had any interactions. But it's clearly he's going to run for the presidency. Interestingly enough, the people get thrown off when I say this about Gavin Newsom. And again, stop me if you don't want me to go on a Gavin tirade. But in 2020, when it was announced that Joe Biden won the presidency, there is not a single person in this country who I believe was more upset at that outcome than Gavin Newsom, because it would have set him up flawlessly. If Trump had won in 2020, that would have meant Gavin could run for president as the sitting governor of the most populous state in the union in an open seat, not against a Democrat. And because of that, because his entire political career has been angling towards the presidency, he wanted Donald Trump to win in 2020 so bad because of his own personal ambition. Now he's in a really bad spot. He's going to have to come after an overwhelming second term from Trump in 2024, an overwhelming win, and he's going to have to get through a field that's going to be way more difficult as a former governor, right? Because he's done next year and is termed out. So it of course he has presidential ambitions. He is but he's what he's been angling at his entire life. The biggest concern I have with him, not policy wise, but just politically speaking, is he is a very smooth operator and a very polite person. Although I disagree with him on dang near everything under the sun.
All right, interesting. Thank you for that perspective. What just before going on, I'm reading about looks like the Supreme Court
Mhm.
has gone against President Trump. He was asking for the Alien Enemies Act to be used to remove the Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang members that we now know President Biden asked to be brought into the country through President Maduro. They're specifically saying that they don't like the way that he is deporting people. He's not giving them enough notice that they need to be removed from the country. Do you what are your thoughts on SCOTUS basically saying illegal criminals, illegal gang members, Tren de Aragua, they deserve more time to get their orders, their affairs in order before they're removed from the country?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of happening in real time, so I haven't read a ton about it specifically, but everything that I've read punditry wise has been revolving around this whole idea of, well, they need more time for their own legal judicial process. That's the other thing, too, that I think is fascinating about the political discourse versus how the legal system really works. You see people on MSNBC and CNN making kind of the same claim that's being made right now from the Supreme Court, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that, well, due process. What about due process? What about due process? And that's fine. I'm not anti due process, but there are varying degrees. What kind of due process? To who? What's the time frame? It appears that, and again, I might be reading too far into something that I'm not entirely sure about yet, but the problem with the immigration thing as a whole is the backlog of judges. What, there's 680 federal judges, and not even, I don't know how many of those are immigration judges specifically, that are just backlogged with all of these cases. And so I understand the argument of, well, it takes time to get this processed. But the answer to that argument is, okay, we'll delay the process more. The answer is, well, no, figure out how to expedite it. Figure out how to make it go faster. It would be crazy if your house was burning down and somebody said, well, you need water to put it out, but we've got to wait till the reservoir fills up to start putting your house. No, just use what you have and just make it go faster. I don't know if that was the best analogy specifically, but I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see, how this plays out, because to my understanding, it's a temporary order so far, and what kind of basis that temporary that being temporary lies in is I'm not entirely sure. So I don't know, man. It continues to be, from the media side and the Democrat side specifically, it continues to be the weirdest hill the Democrats are choosing to die on. Oh, we got to protect these gang members. Okay, I don't know if that's going to work out electorally for you.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's kind of strange is, why are the three conservative judges leaning with the liberal judges? It's somebody said a while back, like, why do we have to guess what the five conservative judges are going to do, but you never have to guess what the four liberal judges are going to do? And it looks like Alito and Clarence Thomas, they sided with President Trump, saying the president of the United States has authority to throw people who came here illegally out, and they don't have to have due process and a long court case because they're not American citizens. It's just odd that we never really know where the conservative judges are going to fall.
And again, I don't know how much authority I have to speak on this, but if I'm a dumb guy looking at the situation, I would probably place a lot of the blame for the ambiguity on the confirmation process and the political leanings at the time of those confirmation processes. And what I mean by that is, I would imagine, so when John Roberts is probably the best example. He's kind of the guy that the swinging, like, hey, you were appointed by a Republican, but you upheld Obamacare by some weird tax thing. Like, that doesn't usually jive with the whole conservative thing. And so he's kind of a toss up, right, in that regard. And I would imagine, and I got to brush up on my SCOTUS history. When he was getting confirmed, there was probably well, we got to get this guy confirmed, and we might not be able to get all the votes unless they're a more moderate type of person. Liberals, for some reason, don't have to do that, and that's probably the fault of Republican senators. Like Ketanji Brown Jackson was as far left gets, but got through no problem. And I know that the standard has been, yeah, the president gets to appoint the Supreme Court, but and that's just kind of how it goes. But obviously, in recent administrations, you've faced a lot of actual contentious confirmation hearings, and all of that is to wrap it up in the Republican or conservative justices being put on the court by Republican presidents. I think oftentimes Republicans kind of capitulate and say, okay, well, we'll get a center right Republican as opposed to an actual conservative like a Clarence Thomas or an Alito. And to answer the question of why do we have to guess, I would venture to guess that is why we kind of don't really have a clear, definitive, oh, this justice is going to go this way, this is just this way. It's because, yeah, they're center right. I wouldn't call them as conservative as I would like them to be, honestly.
You actually just brought up a really, really great point, Jobob. So John Roberts, sticking with that, he was brought to the justice bench by President George W. Bush. So George W. Bush is a totally different Republican Party than somebody that is Donald J. Trump, right? So the party has morphed so much, but we're probably assuming, okay, you're a Republican, you're a conservative, you think like me, but he actually might think like the old Republican Party. The one that's kind of a mystery to me is, they slam through Amy Coney Barrett. She's supposed to be this like brilliant rock star conservative mom, and she votes with the liberals regularly. And then I realize, oh, wait a minute. She was put forward by Mitch McConnell, that old school Republican thinking. I'm starting to wonder if a good portion of the conservatives on the bench are old Republican conservatives. With everything that's happening in the U.S. economy, it feels like we're walking on shaky ground. Prices are stuck at really high levels, and it seems like nothing is affordable anymore. It's no wonder many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing, and it's leaving a lot of people stressed out. If you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. My friends at American Financing can help you take control. They can help you access the debt in your home to help you pay down the high interest credit card debt, giving you peace of mind and real saving. On average, people just like you are saving $800 a month. That's $10,000 a year. Plus, they may close your loan in as little as 10 days. Don't let the chaos of the economy get the best of you. Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started, and you might be able to delay 2 mortgage payments, putting some extra cushion in your bank account. Give them a call at 888-686-8030 or visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner. Again, that's 888-686-8030.
One of the things that I think is consistent with the never Trump Republicans is there's this, for some reason, conflation of personality types and actual policy, because it didn't used to kind of be like that. Well, sorry. It was more of a, okay, well, we like this guy as a person, and so therefore it's fine. I don't even think Donald Trump himself would shy away from admitting, yeah, sometimes I can be a little contentious. I think he would openly admit that. But for some reason, because the Reagan years, people liked Reagan as a person, aside from his policies. There was this kind of notion of, well, we should like the person too, in addition to the policies. Policy-wise, I would imagine like most of these people, Liz Cheney is a great example, right, of this kind of thing. And I'm not here to say that Coney Barrett is this far out there, or any of the justices are this far out there. But Liz Cheney, we can't stand her on the MAGA side of the aisle. But if you just look at the record, her voting record, she was the most conservative person on the issues in Congress. Now, she just hated one guy. And I think that's kind of a similar thing that's going on with, your Mitch McConnell's. It's like, okay, we love the policy, but can't stand the guy for some reason. And that's what I don't understand, why people can't get over that fact. Like Liz Cheney, again, being at the time the most conservative person in Congress, then endorses Kamala Harris, who's the antithesis to everything she believes. That doesn't even make any sense. So what you're based on then is this hinging element of, well, sometimes he's rude on the internet. Like, all right, fine, you can believe that, but you got to come up with a better argument than that, because you're talking about like 1.5% in terms of what factors into my decisions. Like he's got a lot more leeway for me. But like, yeah, I would say, yeah, sometimes Trump is contentious. Trump himself would say, yeah, sometimes I'm contentious. But like, what are the actual value systems being put in place? And unfortunately, I think a lot of what you were saying, a lot of that kind of, well, we need to like the guy too, is kind of still in the murky water, and hopefully will, I don't know, sort itself out once people realize, yeah, hey, it's about the policy instead of the person. The person helps. Don't get me wrong. Trump's aggressive and tenacious nature helps, but the policy is what you should be looking at.
Yeah. I try to put myself in the shoes of the people of Wyoming, just wonderful, hardworking cowboy,
Yeah.
Midwestern, next door to Utah where I'm at. And, she's the most conservative person. And then she comes out and endorses Kamala Harris. I bet they were like, what? No way. I mean, you can see why she lost in a landslide to somebody significantly more conservative and bold than herself.
Yeah, and it just doesn't, like, how do you square that in your own mind, right? Like, if I don't know, I can't think of a scenario where I would do that. Like, or I'm sure you can't think of a scenario. Okay, so this person aligns 100%, or at least a very high percentage of what I believe, but they were mean to Rosie O'Donnell in a debate, and like, so all of the things are put by the wayside because he sends mean tweets sometimes. I don't understand it, and I don't know the situation that I could be put in that would elicit the same reaction from me.
Yeah. One thing that I've been thinking about is, you know, Trump isn't really fighting the Democrats right now because we have a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate. But he's fighting these minos, MAGA in name only, the rhinos, Republican in name only, and the winos, the ones that just whine and complain about everything, Tom
Mhm.
Tillis and others. Why do you think so many Republicans are fighting Trump and not just saying, wait a minute, this aligns with our values? Does it just come down to the fact that they don't like his abrasive personality?
No, I think it's they're worried about their seats. I mean, you got to look at Congress. uh, the Senate, obviously the most important deliberative body in the world, right? You got 100 senators, they serve 6 years. They're not entirely worried about the politics of the moment. Uh, any old any old jackwagon get elected to Congress. There's 435 of these people, and they get elected every 2 years. And I would imagine the people in Congress that are anti-Trump, doing whatever it is, whatever policy that people are against, are looking at their poll numbers, because the second you're elected to Congress, you're running again. And that's its own problem, doesn't necessarily need to get discussed right now, but that's the way these people think of, like, is this going to cause a problem for me getting elected again? And because of that, because there's this kind of narcissistic me, as opposed to do the job that people elected you to do, you have this weird, like, hey, we're MAGA, but also don't, not too MAGA, because I'm only in a split 7 seat, and if it goes too bad, then I could get thrown out of office. To me, that's not, you weren't elected to be elected. You were elected to actually do the job. And part of that is probably, personally, and we don't have to get into this necessarily, but why I'm a fan of term limits at some extent, because you have Congress just, one, not legislating at all, leaving way too much power up to the executive branch, whether that's Trump or Biden or Obama or whoever. But two, all they think about is the next election. Am I going to survive the next election? Am I going to be able to get through if this policy that I agree with doesn't turn out exactly the way that I put it, or even like if I'm giving Democrats the mud to sling on me. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the state of Congress at the moment. Senate's a little bit different, but Congress just they think in 2-year increments and getting reelected, which is why you see so many people in Congress on both sides there for 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah, a bunch of MAGA light. They
Totally.
want to be MAGA, which is so weird because so many of their voters overwhelmingly voted for Trump, abrasive a personality or not. They wanted his common sense policies, and yet then when it comes to putting their own name down on a vote, it's like they're nervous that their voters aren't going to appreciate them supporting the guy they voted in.
Yeah, politically speaking, it's really interesting. Again, kind of this off with the comedian hat more or commentary hat and more on the political consultant hat. Part of the reason for that too is voter turnout is the only thing that actually matters. I think people talk about swaying people from one side to another. It's really getting people to just show up. And I think what people are concerned about in Congress, again, with this process of getting elected every single year, is that if they put their name on something and they are definitive and take an actual stance, even if they agree with that stance, then it could rouse their opponents to actually show up to the polls. Because when you think about people voting, it's like it's an absurdly low percentage of eligible voters actually vote. I think we're in like the 60%, and it's the highest it's ever been. Don't quote me on those numbers. But that's why they're scared. That's why they're scared, because they know that if they put their name on anything definitive, it can be used to hit them in the next election cycle, which again is a problem if you can continually get elected over and over and over and over again. If you can't, if you're done after 12 years or whatever the term limit might be, then maybe you might have some people take some more definitive stances on things that they actually believe in.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, they sell everyone on a dream. They raise millions and millions of dollars. They get in there, and then I just don't see them doing very much. I know that they work hard. I'm not one of these people that are like, oh, these guys do nothing. I believe that they're there, but it's like they're just in all these meetings, but get something done. Like, why aren't they trying to codify President Trump's executive orders? I mean, it's pretty bad when Donald Trump just absolutely takes a hatchet to the Democrat Party's one of their biggest talking points. We'll lower the cost of your drugs. If he gets this done, they don't have that as a talking point ever again. They've got to come up with something else. He gets that done, and the first person to try to get that codified is Roana, the Democrat of California. Like, where are they should all be saying, take this to the floor right now, but they don't. Why? Probably because they're scared. They get all this money from Big Pharma. They're afraid to actually put their name down on something. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Roana being the first one to support Trump?
He's looking at it as a political win. I would imagine that this is again, sorry that I think about everything in like terms of political aspirations and elections. Roana is a Democrat congressman in the Bay Area. A lot of money up there. Interestingly enough, he's done very well in the stock market. Not saying anything there. It's just fascinating. California has two of the dumbest senators I think we've ever had as senators, and that is saying something. Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff are senators, U.S. senators from California. I would imagine that Roana like took that mantle and went, yeah, I'm gonna run for that Senate seat eventually once Padilla's up. Again, Alex Padilla might be one of the dumber people I've ever met, people who've encountered with him. And it's not like a partisan thing. That is people that I know who work close to the government of California. When he was on the state side, said, yeah, this guy, a lot of air floating around in his headspace up there. I would imagine it's political, right? But at the same time, like, you're right. If the president is doing it and you have the political cover of now a Democrat saying, yeah, this is a good idea, do the good idea. Unless, of course, you don't think it's a good idea, in which case you got to make that case. But politically speaking, I don't know, seems like a pretty safe bet on this one.
Yeah, like Chuck Schumer's talked about it. Nancy Pelosi's talked about it. AOC's talked about it. Roana's talked about it. Bernie Sanders ran for president twice that he would get that done, but because it's attached to Trump, crickets. But I don't know. That's why, I mean, you make a really good point. Roana, he's probably playing this really smart, but at the same time, like every Democrat should be going, hey, if the Republicans are going to fight Trump on this, why don't we step in and claim the win? We and Donald Trump got it across the finish line, but because they don't want to be yoked to Donald Trump, then they poo-poo it, and you know, they're gonna try to actively block it, even though it's the right thing for the American people.
Yeah, and I think too, part of that comes from kind of this dysfunctional inner turmoil at the DNC. I don't know if you saw that story that they are going to try and retroactively take back or void the election of David Hogg to the vice presidentship
Yes.
of the DNC, which I think is hilarious. You know, I mean, well, let me refer. I hate to see our friends in the DNC suffer from any sort of turmoil. It makes my heart sad, and we don't want to see that happen. But the reason is because David Hogg said, yeah, we should primary Democrats. And I would imagine that even if Democrats decided they were going to side with Trump on anything, there's always someone further to the left. And those people will take that as an opportunity to do $100,000 ad buy in their district just to test the waters and say, so and so sided with President Trump or Trump loyalist. And you know, that's scary politically speaking if your goal is to get reelected. I wish there was some way that we could figure out how to get this whole idea of consistently getting elected over and over again for 50 years out of the frame of mind. But I don't know. Maybe we maybe we can't. But yeah, it's all political, and that's I think the thing that I hate the most. And you know, not the entire blame I think is on the legislative branch or the legislative part of it. I think there's a lot of it on the voters too. The voters, when the voters start paying as much attention as they probably should as a responsible voter, I think people will get away with the political stunts way, way less.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, final question, Jobob. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
You did political consulting. Who would you guess is going to be the front runner for the Democrat Party in 2028? I'm seeing a lot of people saying AOC because she's, you know, on this big tour with private jets and Bernie Sanders. Others say, hey, we just need to dump even more money into Kamala Harris. I don't know. Who do you think? Obviously, you said Gavin Newsom's going to be in the race.
Yeah. And you know, again, we hate to see this, but it's going to be a bloodbath. Not a literal bloodbath, you crazy libs at Media Matters. Don't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying a metaphorical bloodbath within the Democrat Party. If I were to put my money on it, you know, see, I don't know, because you have these two different ways to raise money now, right? It used to be, if this were 15 years ago, I'd say Gavin Newsome, easy. He's got the biggest treasure chest. He's got just all of the insider connections. But now that AOC, who is an Instagram influencer masquerading as a congresswoman, has the reach that she does, you know, you've got pretty much equal amounts of ability to raise money from two different parts of the electorate, which is going to be fascinating. The thing that I think is going to be really, really interesting is that, you know, I would imagine JD Vance is probably going to be the easiest pick on the Republican side, being the vice president. And, you know, he's going to be able to start effectively from not the middle, but more of the middle than the left is going to. Because on the left side of the aisle, let's just say Kamala Harris, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, and AOC are all in the race. They're going to try and out-woke each other the entire primary. Like, who can be more woke? To me, that's hilarious and fascinating, and I love to see it. And whoever comes out of that woke competition is now going to have to track all the way back to the center to appeal to the swing voters, which hopefully, and I'm just using JD as an example, but you know, it could be plenty of other people, who knows. JD's already kind of in that center area to appeal to those voters, or has been appealing to those voters. So, you know, there's a part of me that wants to say, I hope it's AOC, because I think she would lose 48 states. But at the same time, you know, never underestimate the stupidity of the lefty part of America. And that kind of scares me just a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think if Trump says JD, I think it's in the bag. If he says I'm going to hold back, let Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, JD Vance, let the people give me an idea who they want, I think it could be a tough race. The right definitely has a deeper bench to pull from than the left, and for that I'm very grateful. I'm also grateful for you taking time out of your day to come on the show. If people want to follow you online, where can I point them?
You can type in Jobob pretty much anywhere, and I'll come right up. There's not too many Jobobs, and specifically not too many brown ones, so pretty easy to find. No E, just Jobob. There we go. It's on the screen. On the YouTube channel, on the Facebook, the Instagram, the X platforms, all of the platforms, just Jobob. Not super hard. So that's, I guess, a bright side of the weird name.
All right. Well, I will definitely put some links for people to follow down below. Thank you, Jobob, for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.